Hey there, it's good to see you. I hope you are doing well. Thank you for giving me a little bit of your time to check out where I am for update number 8 of Pan That Palette with the Kat Von D Vida Loca remix. There have been a lot of changes to the palette this month. I've had a lot of neat realizations of what I want to do moving forward. In fact, if you have not had a chance to watch it yet, I recently posted the top 5 lessons I've learned from panning, not just this palette, but palettes in general. So I'm going to go on and link that video in the card above and the description box below, because I'm really kind of taking some advice to heart of my own for moving forward. And so that video is there if you were interested. So as we get back into the update for Kat Von D, let me show you where I was back in July, and then I'll show you where the palette is currently. And here is where the palette is today. I am really enjoying continuing to work out of it. As you can see, there have been quite a few changes. The first biggest change is I finally finished Swoon. I was using that in kind of a Anastasia Modern Renaissance inspired vibe look, mixing it as a blush with Destroyer, and I wore it along with Mulberry from my Lorac Mega Pro. So I will also link that video in the card above in the description box below if you're interested on kind of how I would go with this palette for that. Because I mean, if you have Vox, the matte espresso brown, or even black metal for a deep black, and then I used Legend and the Mulberry shade. I would have gone through with using Skulls mixed with Muse for the highlight in there. It's just a really easy, simple look. So that might be worth checking out if you're looking for more ways to use your palette as well. So I'm happy to finish Swoon. I'm also looking at, my goal is to finish Legend by the end of August. I think I'm going to be able to do that. And then from this point going forward, when I've also worked on Echo very heavily, and then Muse. Those are the 2 shades that I'm really kind of focusing in on right now. But moving forward, I'm really going to just kind of go at my own pace. I want to finish every single shade in this palette, but I have accepted the fact that I'm probably not going to be able to do that by the end of the year. There's a lot of product here, and even though I've made some Franken shadows and things, which is why I've got some holes here, and we'll talk about those in just a minute. There's just too much product to finish in a year, but I've enjoyed using the color so much. It's really made me grow in terms of my makeup application, what I want from my makeup. It's given me a lot of inspiration looking at other color stories. So from this point going forward, I'm still going to have updates every single month. It just, I'm going to be incorporating a lot of other things because I have a lot of looks I want to just pan right now. Like this look in particular works really well to use Muse, Echo, Legend. It helped me get through black metal, but it's a look I want to continue painting for the last little push in the hashtag It's Been Emotional. I really loved a warm tone shadow look that was kind of based around this Rewind shade. I've got a Kat Von D Raw Power eyeshadow that I want to just finish off and move out, and that'll help me use up Analog, as well as Strutter. I kind of Franken shaded this to make it look more like Noble. So, and then also Dark Wave. So I'm just going to kind of, I don't know, I guess Project Pan, kind of a roll with it, if you will, for the rest of the year. So be on the lookout for that. I'm going to continue coming up with Get Ready With Me's. But yeah, I've accepted the fact I'm probably not going to finish all the shades by the end of December because there's just too much. So on that note, I've taken quite a few of the shades, especially some of these blues, because they've been pretty hard to work with, and I've made a couple of Franken shadows that I wanted to talk about with you in particular, because these I'm super excited to wear for fall. I mean, doesn't this just like scream fall colors? So I kind of wanted to walk you through my thought process and how I stay motivated to stay in my palette, stay motivated to shop my stash. So as we get into it, the first Franken shadow I made was actually this bluish color, because when all of the hype really got into a frenzy over the Jaclyn Hill Vault palette, the only palette that really attracted my attention with that collection was the Dark Magic palette for this shade, the matte olive as well. But since there's so many back and forth opinions on the quality of the shadows, the pigmentation, the chalkiness, the not chalkiness, there's just too much going on that I've really decided I'm going to be better off shopping my stash. So I decided to Franken shade. This is actually a mix of this teal shade called Harpsichord. I took a little chunk out of there, And then I went through my Lorac Pro 2 palette with the shade Navy. That's why I've got this chunk of pan there. Navy's a shade I have a really tough time working with on its own because it's kind of chalky, it's really dark. I want to expand my use on it beyond using it as a liner, and so mixing it with this teal makes like the perfect, like deep navy kind of vibey smoky shade. And I figure like if I'm wanting to recreate a look like something from the Jaclyn Hill palette, I can either add a little bit more teal on my eye or add a little bit more navy to make it transition even further. But I wanted the base shade to be kind of a mix, so I've mixed them together in my Lorac Mega Pro pan, and this is kind of what I ended up with. So I'm really excited to incorporate this into fall makeup. It's super autumnal, but then it helps me stay really kind of inspired with what people are doing with their makeup and current trends. So tip for thought. Then the next thing I wanted to do is I really wanted kind of a sparkly purple. Echo is a shade from the Kat Von D palette that really is kind of a nuisance to work with. I like using it on the lower lash line as a liner over a Maybelline liner, but I really wanted to figure out a way to kind of go through and use the rest of it as a standard eyeshadow. So what I've done with this one is I've mixed it with a matte purple from Inglot, just a really basic purple. And it's helped me to end up, this is that Inglot purple. It's actually shade number 325 in the matte formula, to give you a reference. So I mixed Echo, more Echo than this, but just enough to where I got more of a matte purple. And this is the shade that I ended up with. It wasn't a complete success in making the Franken shadow because it's, I don't know, it's not as pigmented as I wanted it to be. I mean, I can build it up, but we'll kind of see. Not every Franken shadow ends up being 100% perfect. It is what it is, but I'm excited to try and incorporate this with fall makeup because I figured I could go on and use this in with the Anthem shade, Love, you know, some of the like the greens and the yellow, and we'll see. We'll see how it works, but I am still excited to have it. This shade I'm particularly excited for. This shade is a mix of Fran, which I love on the lid, but I wanted to make it a little bit more versatile in my everyday makeup, so I took some of that along with a Too Faced shadow from the matte palette. So let me pull that out real quick so I can show you. Because this brown in particular, it works fine for my eyebrows, but it's kind of on the rest of my skin. So it is the shade Sexpresso. I took a chunk of that along with the Fran shade, and I've mixed them together to make this really mustardy yellow. I'd already hit pan in the shade because I'd used it in the past to fill in my eyebrows. It works pretty well for that, but definitely I'm thrilled to be able to multitask this shade. So when you're wanting to make a mustardy brown color, the easiest thing to do is definitely go in heavier with the yellow and then mix the brown until you get a little bit of a darker tone than what you want, because when you repress the shadow, it is going to lighten up just a little bit. So it's going to look really kind of brown in the pan, but when it dries, you're going to get this beautiful kind of mustardy color. So I'm so excited to wear this. I can see this as a transition shade, maybe trying it on my lid, wearing it with some of the greens maybe, or going in wearing it with the blues, or going in wearing it with the orange. There's just a lot of possibilities, or even this Hyper Ballad shade and the mustard together. I mean, that's just so cool. This kind of color reminds me of that ColourPop Super Shock shadow. I'll have to pull that out from my makeup bag. I don't remember what it is off the top of my head, but it's kind of that like baby poop pukey green. Not in a bad way. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of a cool color, very autumnal. Excited. And then the next shade that I made, I actually wanted to lighten up Cocoa a little bit from my Lorac Pro 2 palette. So what I did is I mixed Cocoa in with a little bit of Strutter to lighten it up. And then I also took a little bit of the Sexpresso again and ended up with this really fun taupey brown that's going to be super easy to wear because I can pair this with orange, I can pair it with purple, I can pair it with greens, I can do like an all neutral eye and then do a pop of color on the lower lash line, and it makes Cocoa a lot more wearable. Because one of the things I don't like about the Lorac formula when they do their darker shades, a lot of times it's a black eyeshadow with the shimmer of the color. I'm not really a huge fan of that. So it makes it a little bit more wearable for me. So I'm super stoked about that. And then the last shadow I made is this orangey color right here. Doesn't that just scream pumpkin spice? I mean, super, super fun. And again, it looks really pretty with this teal. And what I've done with that is I've gone through with harpsichord. That is the scooping out. I had hit pan in that shade as well, but I went on and scooped out a little bit, and I mixed it with apricot from my Lorac Mega Pros. So go on through with like a peachy shadow. I mixed those together, and I ended up with this beautiful kind of pumpkin-y spice. It's not too much of a color shift from the original harpsichord shade, because let me see if I can give you a swatch real quick. Here is the original harpsichord next to this shade. It's just a tone lighter, but it's enough of a change where I feel like if I wanted to use this as a lid shade, I have a little bit of a deeper contrast with a darker shade than going in with the harpsichord, so I don't feel like it's so much warm eyeshadow on the eyes. So I don't know, it gives me a little bit more option, a little bit more versatility, and you know, I feel a little bit more inspired to reach for those colors. So I wanted to share those tips with you, because again, don't be afraid to mix your shadows. Don't be afraid to jump around and try different things, because like I talked about in those lessons I've learned from Pan That Palette, it really is about staying consistent and making sure that you use at least a shade from your palette, and you're going to achieve the success that you want. So moving forward, I'm gonna just go at my pace with this palette. When I finish it, awesome. You know, if that's going to be in December, that'd be amazing. If it takes me a little bit longer into next year, I'm kind of thinking I'm going to go through and really just knock out some eyeshadow out of my collection. So I'm excited about the process of just rolling it. So I hope you continue to stay looking out for these updates, so that you are motivated to shop your stash and have some fun with some eyeshadow out of your collection. It has been such an insightful year, a fun year, and I recommend, if you haven't seen it yet, perhaps some of the lessons that I've learned through Pan That Palette will be helpful for you too. So check out that video. And that about wraps it up for now. Thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to catching up with you real soon.